Hey everybody, Mike Lawson here with CU Broadcast. Welcome to our show, and on today's program we are talking to Charlie Trotter, who just might be the happiest person on the planet, so check it out. Hey everybody, Mike Lawson here with CU Broadcast. Welcome to our show, and we are in for a treat today. We have Mr. Charlie Trotter on the show today. How's it going, Charlie?
It's going great. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. We were just mentioning before we started taping the show that you look like the redheaded Stephen Colbert, and I mean that a complete compliment.
Oh boy, I'll take a compliment in any form I can get one. So no arguments here.
Indeed, good stuff. Hey, before we dive in, we're talking about, you gave a great presentation at the recent CU Water Cooler Symposium on improvisation, but before we get into that, can you give folks out there, the 3.5 people that might be living under a rock that don't know you, what's your connection with credit unions?
Oh man, my connection with credit unions started what feels like ages ago. I worked for Trabian Technology, and I was a designer on their staff, and at one point, my last couple years there was the creative director there, and we built a lot of credit union websites.
Right on.
And so that's how I got introduced to this whole community of people. And even once I took a position outside immediately of CUs, it's a group I made friendships in. Yeah. So I wanted to stay. And especially the way they've handled the symposium in the years since, they just have some really good ideas going on there. And it does me good to go hear it, even though I'm not in that industry.
But I mean, it's good to take ideas from outside the industry and bring them in, and that's what you can do as well, because you're kind of outside the industry, but you're bringing the good stuff back in, which we'll talk about today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about your presentation on improvisation that you talked about. Can you give us a kind of a quick summary on what you talked about, and we can dive into it from there?
Totally. Yeah, my hypothesis is, while improvisation is a big topic and not one that, I mean, it's so multifaceted, but for me, the two kind of corner pieces of it that I use to think about, and the things I've seen surface as I study it and do it, is that you have to have fluency in a language of some kind. So we're having a conversation that we did not rehearse today.
Yeah.
We don't have a script that we're necessarily following, and so we're just going back and forth because you and I have fluency in our native language. But there are other languages aside from native languages. There is the language of music, or the language of finance or health or whatever. And so having a level of fluency in that, in which you don't have to stop and take so much time to process, allows you to, on the fly, make a decision. And so when I realized that helped take some of the destructive magic away from thinking about improvisation. So we have, like, musicians and comedians in our society are probably two of the groups of the most celebrated improvisers. And they're able to do that, comedians, because they understand timing, they understand context, a lot of history you would maybe be surprised to learn, a lot of comedians are familiar with. And musicians know their instruments, and they know how music works. And so they're able to be dropped into an unfamiliar context, and they know exactly what to do. And so that's one aspect of improvisation. And the other, from my experience, is humility. Because when you're live in the middle of a situation, like before our call's over, I might say something really stupid.
I'm guaranteed to say something stupid, so all right, we're in the same boat.
So I have to have a level of humility at which I begin the act of improvisation at any given setting with the knowledge and acceptance that I'm going to make a mistake, and that's not allowed to speak to my identity and competency. And that I'm just going to kind of sidestep it, or in some situations I'm going to use it as raw material.
Right.
So that's kind of the nut of the talk I gave, and what I think about when I think about improvisation.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the music and the mistakes and the humility here in a second, but I want to cut to the chase here. I mean, what's the connection? How can credit unions really embrace improvisation? I mean, what's the connection there?
Man, I think a couple of the things I've thought about is taking advantage of the different places of the language of a credit union organization, of different aspects of finance, because there are people within that organization that are fluent in a really specific sliver of what it is to be a credit union than somebody else, maybe even the person they sit next to. And so taking two people who are accomplished and can produce, and putting them in a setting, putting them in a pair, and aiming them at a problem that maybe you're having trouble solving, you're going to get some unusual connections made because they have the contextual fluency as well of just being in the credit union organization. So I think thinking about improvisation from that perspective, and just, I mean, what could it cost? I mean, obviously you have to be smart and discerning about that, but it would be worth a try, and you definitely get some results that you haven't been getting so far. In terms of, like, one thing that I didn't talk about much in my talk, as it relates to improvisation, or that I don't talk about when I talk about creativity in general very much, is I speak a lot about how an individual can kind of get off their butt and get to work. Yeah. And get over a lot of the mental stuff, because all of it is between your ears. Like, my hands are good at playing guitar because I've played a lot of guitar, but it's as much happening between my ears as it is in my hands. And so, especially when mistakes start to happen. But in a team setting is when that kind of goes next level, is when you're in a team, and if there's something about that team in which the members don't feel safe to make a mistake, don't feel like they have the level of agency to be able to make a call on something and try something that may or may not work, that's really going to shut down somebody's ability to produce creative, unusual solutions to things. And so it's a topic I would love to explore more, is how do you really foster that in a team environment, which really that starts with the leadership of that team. Yeah. And that can be really powerful, because you can either, the opposites of that are both true, that you can set free a level of creativity in a team of people that is insane, but you can lock it down like Fort Knox too, if they don't think they're going to be safe to make a mistake, and then just have a chance to fix it and survive it. So yeah, that I think would be, that applies, I think, incredibly to credit unions and to any organization at all.
No doubt. Yeah, there's a